And what? Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Black Spinner Music Podcast. Today's topic, as you can read it down there on the banner, it's a top 10 plus five honorable mention albums of 1973. Today's panel, we got two panelists today. We got Brad Daw from the Yard Metal, all online metal. And if you want to hear any great sounding metal, a lot of deep tracks from bands from the beginning of metal to right now. That's a great place to check out. It's a free app. Just type up Yarg. It'll pop up in a green icon. So
That's such
check
a
that
great
out. It's
station.
very fun.
Man,
And
thanks, Andy.
also, huh?
That's a great
Yeah.
station, man.
Thanks,
And
guy.
also, we got Al Horta from the Be Cool or Be podcast out. And he's
Hey,
got a
Andy.
great, yeah, how's it going on? He's got a great YouTube station where you can see live shows. And also, there's a new podcast that we have filmed last week about the top 11 songs of Thin Lizzy. It's a fantastic show. I was introduced to Thin Lizzy and I really enjoyed it. Really good
Yeah,
stuff.
great show. Great show.
So today we are going to be talking about our top 10 albums of 1973 and what a year that was. We have albums that were released by some big time heavy hitters and maybe even a few non-heavy hitters that snuck in there. And let's see what we got. We'll go Brad, Al, and myself. So let's get started. Al, I'm sorry. Brad, what's your number 10? What do you start off with?
We're gonna go with 10.
All right,
10.
number 10.
Okay, me first.
Yeah.
All
You
right.
first.
Yeah. A little history here. I was let's see, I turned 13 in 73.
Oh,
I didn't have a lot of albums. Had a few. Had quite a cassette collection thanks to the Columbia Record Club. They got me a good starter kit. But yeah, digging out 10 favorites wasn't 100% easy for me. But number 10, I'm going with Led Zeppelin, House of the Holy.
Wow.
And I don't know if either of you guys are going to talk about that. I really don't have a lot to say about that album other than it's one of my favorite Zeppelin albums. And The Ocean has always been one of my favorite Zeppelin songs to play. It's a fun song to play, drums or bass. Yeah, I'm sure
yeah.
the guitar's fun too. Al could probably tell us that.
It's a funky song. I mean, you know, it's not it's not their usual sound. So
No.
you're right. It's kind of a funky beat to it.
Yeah,
It's
it's got the drum part is I just love it.
yeah, you're right about that. Yeah, that's a really good album, good song too. We'll see what pops up later on.
And
in
they
the
would
episode.
I think they'd be classified as a heavy hitter. So
Oh yeah, definitely, big time. In fact, I'm pretty sure that was one of the. If we had done a panel or a a poll, I'm pretty sure that'll be on a lot of people's list as well. Al, what are you gonna start off with?
Well, my number 10, I'm going to go with the debut album from Montrose. Uh, 1973. Yeah, man. It was the first
Yeah,
album. Uh, in my opinion, probably the best thing Sammy ever did. I mean, he would do some good things later on, but as a solid album and uh, and band, I mean, this band like right out of the gate, this album was a classic. It wasn't a classic in the beginning when it was first released. It was actually pretty much under the radar. It's become this kind of cult classic as the years have gone by,
yeah,
and people look back at it now. But I think it was just above. It was kind of above people's heads. I think when it first came out, they were like they were pretty heavy for their time, man. Ronnie Montrose, man, just a killer guitar player, and he had previously been in what Edgar Winter Group, right?
yeah,
yep.
And stuff. So yeah, man. I mean, then you got Bill Church and Denny Carmassi on the drums. What a rhythm section right there, and produced by Ted Templeman, who would later on kind of use this formula. Like when you would hear the in headphones, you hear the guitar in one channel, bass in the other, and just like the first couple of Van Halen albums, he would use that same technique. Um, So, and I remember Eddie Van Halen being really influenced by this first Montrose album. He always like talked about it and he loved it and stuff. So, as far as songs, man, I mean, Make It Last, Rock the Nation, Bad Motor Scooter, Space Station Number 5 is great. I mean, all the songs on here are awesome. So, yeah, man. I mean, I love the first Montrose album. I discovered it, after like when Sammy was in Van Halen, or like right before, mid '80s. I kind of discovered it, and I was like, oh, Sammy was in a band before he was like solo. And I remember when I first saw Van Halen with Sammy and on that 5150 tour, I remember the concert I was at, they played Make It Last from this album, which was really cool. It was cool to hear. I think it went over a lot of people's heads, though. Nobody really knew. A lot, probably, I don't know, 70% of the people probably didn't even know Montrose or whatever. But I remember it was really cool to hear that. So yeah, so Montrose will be my number 10.
Oh man, that's a good pick. And also, all because you heard Ronnie Montrose on the Edgar Winter releases, it didn't get people ready for what will come out on Montrose because it was completely different from what he was doing with Edgar Winter.
Yeah, his riffs were crazy, man. It was great.
Yeah, it influenced guitar players of the '80s. Whatever Eddie Van Halen was doing, he was emulating Ronnie Montrose, especially on that first album. So it's a really good album. Unfortunately, I didn't put it in mine, but I did hear it over the weekend, and it's a powerful album. It is. I'm going to start off with a little proggy. Genesis, Selling England by the Pound, where the great Steve Hackett really shines on this album. I think when Al and I did Yes versus Genesis, I did state that this was my favorite Genesis album with Peter Gabriel, and I still stand by that. The songs are shorter, but still the technique is so intricate. Even though there's still a couple of songs like The Cinema and a couple of others that are expanded long, but for the most part, they get, I wouldn't say poppy, but a little bit easier accessible to their music. But they still kept that prog inkling there. This will be the second to last album with Peter Gabriel. So he was on the way out, but man, they were still firing on all cylinders. So that's my number 10 is Genesis. What's your number 9, Brad?
I was waiting for Jerry. Sorry. Okay, number 9, and this one I actually was going to put this number 1 just because to me it is definitely the best album of '73. But for me personally, and I did have this on vinyl. Me personally, though, I guess maybe because I listened to it so much in '73, '74, and that I haven't really listened to the whole album probably over 40, 50 years even. Wow. And that would be Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd.
Wow.
That album, like I said, I thought, oh, this is going to be my number 1. And I was like, wait a second, it's not really my number 1, but I'm going to say it's the best album that came out that year as far as historically. I mean, it's still great now. The songs on it are just unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
That album still sounds fresh. Really does. Sounds great.
Yeah, I listened to that so many times. Yeah, great album. All right, Al.
Well, my number 9, I'm following Andy here. It's going to be Genesis, Selling About a Pound, which is my favorite Genesis. Oh, actually, no, my second favorite Genesis album. Foxtrot happens to be my number 1.
Really?
But yeah, it's a great album. Yeah, it's Steve Hackett does shine on this. He's great. You got First and Fifth, which they played on. I remember when they reunited in 2007 with Phil Collins. I remember they put this. They played First and Fifth, which was cool to hear. An old song. And pretty much the crowd tuned out because they weren't used to it. But 90% of the crowd is used to the Collins era Genesis. Yeah. So when they play like this kind of older stuff, the people are like, "What's going on here?" But
It's
yeah,
a
you know,
whole
you got
different band.
it's a whole different band. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cinema Show is cool. First and Fifth, like I said, Dancing with the Moonlit Night,
yeah,
Battle of Epping Forest is such an epic. You know, I love this album. It's great. I mean, this you know the Peter Gabriel era Genesis is, you know, I just obviously discovered it much later on because I knew the Collins era, you know, as a kid growing up, and then I'm like, then Peter Gabriel was big in his own right solo, and I'm like, wow, this guy used to be in Genesis. You know, I've come to find
yeah.
out. So kind of went back and discovered these albums, and I love most of them. So yeah, and he's going on tour, man. I kind of wish he'd play like, you know, a couple of old Genesis songs. He usually doesn't, but it'd be kind of cool to hear, you know, him pull out a
That would
couple
be.
of gems.
Yeah,
You know, but
yeah,
that's it.
but you're right. He usually sticks to his solo. But I
Yeah,
love it when people
that,
say, "Oh,
yeah.
I'm
But
sorry,
that's
go."
no, that's my number nine. I'm good.
I love it. I love it when people say, "Oh, well, when Peter Gabriel left, Genesis started being pop." Well, so did Peter Gabriel when he went solo. He became pop. You know, it's the same thing. You know, they were moving into a whole new decade, and they had to change their sound. Excuse me, because there wasn't that many prog bands that lived through the '80s at all. You know, and both Genesis with Phil Collins and Phil Collins solo, and Peter Gabriel solo, they all found a lot of success there in the '80s.
Yeah.
Huge success. Everybody did.
Prague,
So
Prague, Prague kind of went underground in the '80s. Then it kind of a whole new kind of era like sprung up. You know, bands like
yeah,
Marillion and stuff like that, IQ and things like that sprung up. I mean, those are good bands too. So they kind of kept that old Prague flame going. You know, but I mean, the long songs. I mean, it wasn't really a big thing anymore in the '80s. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
So, but there was an underground, like, you know, there was a crowd, there was an audience for that stuff. They just kind of went underground. That's all.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah, you're right about that. I'll talk about that whole '73 Prague era because Prague was huge that year too.
this is probably the
Um,
peak year for Frog. You know,
yeah, yeah,
72,
yeah,
73. No, I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that started a whole new. Started a whole new genre and a
yeah,
very successful one at that. My next one, this band found success after tragedy, but only a little bit more success. This was a successful album after they went through tragedy, and I'm talking about Brothers and Sisters by the Allman Brothers. This was just this was my very first Allman Brothers album I ever bought, and when I
yeah,
used to have my own apartment, and when I was a single man, I used to play the hell out of this album. I thought it was awesome. Wasted Words, Rambling Man, you know, that's one of their big hits. That was even sung by Richard Betts. Jessica, which is a fantastic. I mean, we all know that instrumental, Jessica and Pony Boy, and man, we're brothers and sisters. This one came out after the success of Eat a Peach. So, if y'all are familiar
yeah,
with it, of course, it is without. Uh, oh crap! It is without Dwayne Allman. This no wait, I'm sorry. Is it Dwayne? Yes, Dwayne Allman. This
yeah,
is without Dwayne Allman, and it was the first time that he had nothing to do with it. He doesn't play, any empty, any old tracks that were put on
yeah,
here like there was on Eat a Peach. This was clear from him. So this was definitely the Dickie Betts guitar led era, and Brothers and Sisters sticks out to me. It's a great album. Okay, that's my number 9. Number 8 for you, Brad.
Okay, number 8. In 1974, I realize we're doing 73, but in 74, that's when I started going to high school. And I met some guys there that were older than me, and they did a lot to influence my musical taste at that time. These guys would just loan me albums. In fact, that's where I got the very first Kiss album was from these guys, and pretty sure they never got it back. But the one thing they really turned me on to that was huge for me during this time period was David Bowie. And so Aladdin Sane came out this year. So I have to give that album a shout out. And as far as the song on there, Panic in Detroit, that always gets me. There's a lot of great songs on there though, but that's my pick for that one. And
was he still the Ziggy Stardust kind of persona?
Yeah. I mean, this has got the iconic album cover with the lightning bolt makeup and
right.
And yeah, so he was still, even though I guess he was still touring. Guy, everything happened so fast there. I mean, he had all those albums that came out, just within like a year.
Wow.
And I mean, even after that, he released 2 albums in 73. So I'll talk about his second one when we do the +5. But this is my number 8. So David Bowie. Yeah, huge. I don't know, huge influence for me when I was a wee lad.
Oh wow, yeah. He was influential to a lot of especially musicians because he changed so much. His music went to so many different genres, and it was amazing how he would do that and still be successful. He didn't alienate; he invited, which was odd.
Yeah.
Al, what's your next one?
Next one's my number 8 is gonna be Blue Oyster Cult, Tyranny Mutation. This is part of their black and white era, like their first couple of releases. Great album, man. Red and the Black, OD on Life Itself, Hot Rails to Hell. I mean, this is like prime BOC over here. So, again, like I discovered the early BOC like later on, as after discovering Don't Fear the Reaper and all that stuff. Kind of went back, and I had a friend of mine who's a huge BOC fan, and he knew I was a huge Rush fan. He's like, you got to check out the early BOC. It's lyrically there's a lot of intelligence, in their lyrics as well. I mean, if you like Rush, you'd love them too. So yeah, man, they were like a thinking man's band as well. Their lyrics were really, really cool and out there, and it wasn't your typical rock and roll lyrics. So yeah, man, Tyranny and Mutation by BOC is got to be my top 10. So it's gonna be like my number 8. Could be a little higher, but there's a lot of great albums on here. I mean, the top 3 were like clear to me, and then the rest is kind of like where am I gonna throw them? You know what I mean? Just kind of like they're all great albums, man. So.
Yeah, Blue Oyster Cult came out in that New York heavy metal scene, which really wasn't a scene. They're the ones that came out of nowhere, and they really did put a stamp on that, and they were so different from everybody else. Yeah, that's a good pick, very good pick. My number 8 is going to be this band was just coming off their biggest successes. Coming off of one of the best live albums of all time, and one of their celebrated albums. Then in 1973, they came out with this gem that was, people say it was a letdown because of everything that they had released before. But I love it. Deep Purple, Who Do We Think We Are? This was after Machine Head and made in Japan. And, this still kept the great drums of Ian Pace and the chugging keyboards of John Lord and the great Richie Blackmore, Woman from Tokyo. There's always an odd song by Ian. This one's Mary Long, which is a pretty funny song. But Super Trooper's fantastic, and it ends with Our Lady, which is what we love the most about Deep Purple, is the intricate playing of John Lord and Richie Blackmore. So Deep Purple is my number 8. Who Do We Think We Are? Good stuff. It's a good album.
Great choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So number 7 for me. Yeah. This is one also that I had on vinyl. I'm not sure how I got turned on to this person. Actually, it was a band at that time. But I think this is the very first album that I bought of theirs, and that's Alice Cooper, $1 Billion Babies, and that's another one. And I just
Great one, man.
listen to that forever. The first two songs, "Hello Hooray," "Raped and Freezing," "Raped and Freezing" probably be a tough sell nowadays, but great song in '73, and of course the title track. Yeah, this is when Alice Cooper was a band, not a person.
Yeah.
And fantastic. I think Andy's got the vinyl there somewhere. So
maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I got $1 Billion Babies.
Yeah. So yeah, at this point in my life, yeah, David Bowie, Alice Cooper, you can kind of see where my musical taste was kind of being pulled into that kind of, yeah. I don't know what they called it.
The what?
What you classify the music? Shock rock, glam. I don't know that glam is really coined at that point in time, but I felt like those two guys kind of went together. Well, the two, Alice Cooper and David Bowie, for me and my musical DNA, they kind of were there at the same time.
You know, like maybe costume rock. I know there's no such thing, but we can make something up and see if it sticks.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And also Alice Cooper released 2 albums in '73. So
yeah, he did. Yeah. What's your number 7, Al?
Well, I'm going to the Allman Brothers and Sisters. Again, Allman Brothers is probably my favorite Southern rock band. I mean, they're more than just a Southern rock band, really. I mean, they're just a great band all around. I mean, but they kind of are called the godfathers of that scene, you know, and but yeah, man, I mean, this was after Dwayne was gone already, but really Dickie Betts really stepped up his game, you know, and really kind of took the reins of the band really, and still was coming out with great material, great album. You know, Jessica is awesome. You know, I mean, what can you say? You know, Andy already touched on a lot of the songs, so again, it's like one of my favorite bands, and I was a tradition, you know, going to see them every. It'll be around now, man. March Madness, you know, like they played their Beacon Theater run. You know, I'd probably be at a show right now if they were still like around and stuff. So I mean, the Allman Brothers, man, brothers and sisters. I got to go with that one. It's gonna be my number 7.
Number 7. I kind of cheated here. I chose a live album.
What? You said no live albums.
No live albums. I said only studio albums. But when this was released as a live album, it had never been heard before. So it was released as a studio live album. And which nobody does that but Neil Young. Release a new album and plays a new album live that no one's ever heard. So I'm going with Time Fades Away.
So it's a live album that has all new songs on it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. All these are new songs that had never been heard. This was the beginning of what critics call the Ditch Trilogy. It was this, and then went to Tonight's the Night and Zuma, and on the Beach. You see, because this has songs like Time Fades Away, Journey into the Past, L.A., Uptight, Don't Be Denied, Last Dance, which is a great jam with the Crazy Horse on there. So yeah, this is a live album, but it's all new material on here. Last Dance. It took me a while to find this one, so I was so excited when I was able to find it. So
I'll let it go, man. I'll let it go. It's your show.
And it has not been released on CD yet. It's still just on
album.
Really?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because it wasn't that big of a seller.
I remember Ted Nugent did a similar thing with Intensities in 10 Cities, which was like all just songs that he played live that were never released on an album. He just kind of made an album out of it, you know. So yeah, I mean, some bands' first albums are live albums. And Jane's Addiction's first album was a live album. You know, it's I think Primus's first album was a live album.
Oh, wow.
You know, yeah. So it's kind of weird to come out with a live album as like your first release, or come out with a live album that has like as an album, like all new songs and shit on it. So
Yeah,
that's cool, man.
yeah, to play them live when no one's heard them before, you know.
Well, that Neil Young always beat. He always, he did his own thing, man. He always just kind of marched by the beat of his own
Yeah,
drum. You know what I mean? He just did what he wanted, and if you were along for the ride, then you're along for the ride.
yeah,
You know.
yeah. And
So
I've seen him twice do that. When I saw Greendale, it hadn't been released yet, and then another album called La Noise, which was produced by Daniel Lanois. Actually, the first time he
oh,
ever
okay.
worked with him,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
and when I went to go see him, he played a live. He played the whole live album, and I remember it was downtown Houston. We got in the elevator, and there were these young people talking, and they said, "Where did y'all come from?" This lady goes, "We were watching Neil Young," and then the young girl goes, because there was a multiplex." She said, "Well, who's Neil Young?" And then the lady said, "Well, he's a singer from the '70s." And I wanted to say, "Did you just hear that whole new album he just played for you?" He's still pushing down barriers. He's not just a singer from the '70s, and that's why he made this album here. He was trying to get away from that old man and the heart of gold kind of sound. He didn't want to
Yeah.
be pigeonholed, so he released something that was totally different from what anybody else would expect. So that's my number 7. What's your number 6, Brad?
All right. Well, first of all, I was going to say, bands could do that in the '70s. They didn't have to
Yeah,
they didn't have to stick to what they did on their previous album. They could
yeah,
come out with something
Yeah.
totally different. And it was like, we're more fans of the band and we're willing to go with them back in the '70s. And now it's like, somebody puts out an album now and it's like,
God
well,
forbid.
it's not as good
God,
as, yeah.
yeah. God forbid they deviate from the formula and whatever. It's like
Yeah, and it's you go to a concert now of somebody who was popular in the '70s, '80s, or even '90s, and they try to play something new, and people are just like, "Yeah, we don't want to hear it." So,
it's kind of like the
yeah,
Stubataka. We're judging every single that's coming out. We're focusing on that one song every time something is released. We're like, oh well, that doesn't sound like 1983, So
yeah.
yeah, excuse me.
So,
I'm sorry.
hopefully, what we're doing, we're probably preaching to the choir here, is getting people to open their minds to new music and
Yeah,
not be just like, I only want to hear these songs.
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of, but hey, old music that's great. My number 6. This is a band that I first saw. And back in the '70s, they had these cool concert shows on the weekends. ABC had one called In Concert. There was the Midnight Special, and it was
Yeah. Right.
Don Kirshner's rock concert. So there was 3 of them, and they were kind of spread out on different nights. And I'm pretty sure it was In Concert where I saw this band, and it's a band is Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Oh wow.
And
Yeah.
the music is so out there. And I mean, I'm just a kid watching this. So this had to be like '73. And for some reason, I was just hypnotized by all this stuff that was going on. The guitar playing, the drumming, the level of virtuosity was just unbelievable. And there was just something about the music too that drew me right in. So this is the first album that I got by them. Birds of Fire. And I think Andy, I got you into to listen to this one, didn't I?
Yeah, and since then
Right.
I've bought two.
John McLaughlin, man.
Huh?
John McLaughlin, man.
John
Yeah.
McLaughlin. The dude was insane. I mean, just he was famous back then for playing the double neck SG and playing leads on a 12 string, and he was just he was shredding before shredding was a thing.
Yeah,
And it was just bizarre. But I mean, they had the violin in there, and the violinists that they had were just incredible. Billy Cobham on drums at this time.
Oh, great. Yeah.
There's actually a drum solo for the song on was it One Word? I think the second side 2 of the album. I should know these titles better, but it's just fantastic. The bass playing everything on it is great. So if you don't know about Mahavishnu Orchestra, I think this is the best place to start this album. and give it a try. And yeah, it still sticks with me to this day. I just that's what got me into this kind of that kind of music. Fusion is what the kids were calling it back then.
Yeah.
It wasn't like just jazz. It was like jazz and rock together. And
well, since you spoke about them, I'm buying this one with Santana, which is really good.
I had that one too on vinyl with the open the gate fold and all that. And
I've also got a live album that I bought the other day, a live CD. But it's not the one you talked about in the 70s. It was one that was from maybe the late 80s, early 90s.
Okay. Huh.
And in fact, I was looking for it because I had it right here because I just bought it recently. So yeah, I listen to everybody's picks and I get into it. So yeah, thank you for introducing me to him. Because
that live album I told you about, Between Nothingness and Eternity, that was actually released in '73 as well. And I mean, it only has 4 songs on it. I mean, one song is one side of the album. Mine had this huge groove during part of the song, so it was tough to listen to because it always go click, 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 and but it ate up like about 3 minutes of the song. But I still listen to it. I ended up buying another copy of the vinyl, got it on CD, and that is a great album. But it's a live album, so I won't talk about it here. Oh, and it was a live album of songs they'd never put out on an album before. So there's a reason for that the album that those songs were going to be on. I guess there was a problem with the record company, but that came out like 30 years later. It's called the Trident Sessions, and so the record company I guess wouldn't release it for whatever reason. So yeah, great job, record company. But it's out now. You can listen to that one too. All right, there you go. Al, take it away.
So my number 6 is going to be Brain Salad Surgery by Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Ooh.
Yeah. To me, this is like peak. This is them at their peak. I mean, with the 4-part, Carnival 9 and The Beautiful Still You Turn Me On, and Jerusalem and Cicada, and it just ridiculously these guys. This is off the charts. I mean, Keith Emerson to me is still the greatest, keyboardist of all time, man. I mean, there was nobody better than him, man.
I think Derek Sherinian would probably say he's the best, but I guess he is now.
Well, he is now because because Keith is gone, but Derek is great, man. I've met.
No, he is great.
I've seen him plenty of times. He's awesome. And but man, Keith was just a showman, and flipping the keyboard like the organ on top of him and playing it backwards, like behind. So playing it like backward. I mean, the guy was a enigma, and I only got to see him live once. I didn't see him in the confines of ELP. But I did see Keith Emerson solo once. He played here in New Jersey, and I did get to meet him once too, and he signed an album for me. I regret not getting a picture with him though. It would have been cool, but I didn't get a picture with him. But I do have his autograph, and I did meet him. He was a cool dude. It was probably like 10 years ago when I met him, and that's it. I mean, this album to me, this is like the peak of like progressive music. This album was like pretty much top of the heap. Like ELP and like King Crimson were like the gods of like progressive rock. As far as taking it like really out there and all that stuff. I know you have Yes, Genesis and stuff too, which were. I mean, there's so many. I mean, if you have like the Mount Rushmore of like Prague, I mean, shit, man. I mean, ELP would have to
up there.
ELP would have to be one of the bands up there. You know what I mean? So that's going to be number 6, Brain Salad Surgery.
Yeah. And Greg Lake, when I started playing bass, he was one.
I love his voice too, man.
Yeah, he's great voice, great live, and him. If you watch the footage from the Cal Jam, when they're
California.
Yeah, you watch the footage of that. He's chewing gum during the whole thing, which is it's hilarious. I mean, singing while you're chewing gum is not that easy, and he's just as crystal clear. Plus, I mean, he's like smoking like crazy, and his voice was never got raspy and nasty. And
Yeah,
he, but his bass playing, I
yeah.
know his tone was what I was really kind of going after when
Oh
I
yeah,
first,
dude.
and plus the fact that I don't know, he just he was a
He
great.
would distort. He would fuzz it out and distort it, and oh man, he was just like insane. I mean,
Yeah,
the whole band was just the cream of the crop of like musicianship, man. So yeah,
yeah.
man. I mean, brain salad surgery. I have the. What's cool is I have a surround sound version of that, and that album is
Uh,
just made for like fucking surround, man. I mean,
it is.
When they toured that album, they actually in the arenas
had a
that they
quad.
played, they
Yeah.
set it up as quad. Yeah, my brother got to see him at Anaheim
Wow.
Convention Center. And
Wow.
so yeah, they had speakers in the back, and they're at the end of Carnival 9 when the
Yeah.
synthesizer thing. He
Oh,
said
yeah.
it was going totally around the stadium, and then of course it gets going faster, faster, faster.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
What a
yeah,
time, man.
yeah, they were nuts, and so I could talk about ELP for a long time, so I'll stop now.
I wish
Great.
I would have seen them. I wish I could have seen them live, man. I didn't. I missed out on them like when they reunited in the '90s. I wish I could have. I
That
should have went to go see them, but
you should have,
uh,
because I'm telling you, that first tour that they did when they reunited was fantastic. We saw them. We stumbled across them. We were doing a tour of the Northwest, and we were going through Oregon, and I think I had the radio on, of course, back in those days,
Yeah.
that's where you listen to music. And we heard that ELP was going to be in Portland. We're like, holy crap, we got to go. And so we just dropped in. We were able to pick up tickets. Bonham was the warm-up act, but ELP, they were pulling out all the stops. They did just such an incredible show, and they were having fun. I mean, it was like, hey, we got back together, and we're just going to go out and we're just going to have fun playing music. And it was just a really cool, kind of almost intimate show where they were kind of talking back and forth, screwing with each other during songs, and they were just having a blast, man. And yeah, Keith Emerson did the whole thing, destroying his Hammond, which that was the only time. Well, Shelley's seen him twice, but that was the first time she saw him. And I said,
Oh, wow.
man, you are so lucky to get to see this, because it's like a piece of history. The whole, twirling that thing around, and
because in the '70s, man, around this time, they were like one of the biggest bands. They were playing like stadiums and shit. It was nuts.
oh
man,
yeah,
how
they
big
had
a band we were.
Yeah, they headlined California Jam, and I know that was
Yeah, they did.
Richie Blackmore wasn't happy about that because they had to go on before him, and he didn't want to play in the daylight. And my brother was actually at Cal Jam, the first one,
Wow.
and he said by then, back then they didn't really know how to do festival things here in the U.S.
Yeah.
And so they ran out of water. They didn't have enough bathrooms. In fact, people ended up pushing down the fence of the place, and so all these people got in for free. And so they had more people in there than they had expected.
Yeah.
And anyway, he said that they gave people plastic bottles to so they could get water. Yeah. And my brother said when ELP was on there, everybody started throwing their bottles up on, like they're kind of big jug kind of plastic things. And he said it was really cool because the lights would catch them as they're flying around the audience. He said it was unintended special effect.
Yeah,
But cool stuff.
Cool.
Yeah. Go ahead, Andy.
But I did find that CD I was telling you about, guys. It is the Lost Trident sessions.
That's not live. That's the studio songs that became Between Nothingness and Eternity live. Okay. Yeah, so that's studio. Yeah.
Yeah. I've just heard this one time, so I'm still getting into it.
Yeah. Good choice.
So we're at what, number 6?
Yep.
Number 6.
Yep, 6.
And Brad mentioned it earlier.
There it is.
$1 Babies. You know it. When I was listening to this, and when I hear a lot of Alice Cooper, it's starting to, well, not starting to, but, they're really good hard rock band with a pop sensibility to them. And I think that's why they're so well liked by a wide range of music lovers because it's hard. It's hard rock, but it's easy to get into them because of the way that Alice Cooper. I know that's not his real name, but the way that he writes his lyrics and writes his hooks, it can be kind of a pop inclination. So that's pretty cool. So that's my number six is Billion Dollar Babies. And if people don't know, Alice Cooper was almost one of the top entertainers in that time 73, 74, 75. But that was, like Brian was saying, that was the last album with the Alice Cooper group. And after that,
No,
his music would just, you know, it
there's
would
one
be
more album.
very singular. Okay. So they are Welcome to My Nightmare.
No, it's in my plus five.
Okay. But yeah, I came out with Alice Cooper Billion Dollar Babies, which was a huge success and a huge release for him. Well, for them. So we're at number five, halfway there. What do you got going on, Brad?
Oh wow, yeah, that's we're going really fast, kids.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, this is Black Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. It's hard to believe it came out in 73. I mean, you put that up against all these other albums, it just seems like it should be later. But what a great album. Killing Yourself to Live, one of my favorite songs to play. National Acrobat, another one of my top favorite Sabbath songs. And of course, the title track that they can't play because nobody can sing it is Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. Just a great album. And I remember when this came out because my brother, the world's greatest Black Sabbath fan, he bought it. And I remember hearing all his buddies saying, oh, this is not Black Sabbath. And they've gone commercial because the production on it is a little slicker than, the first four albums. And I'm like, how can you listen to this and say this is commercial?
Right.
What the hell? And maybe because of the keyboards and a couple of the songs, but very cool. It's just a great album.
Well, the production is cleaner, especially compared to Volume 4, where Volume 4 is a little murky, but that's the way you like it,
Yeah, the songs are just as heavy as anything.
Yeah, it was made for that kind of production, Volume 4.
Yep. Yeah. So Sabbath.
Yeah.
Okay, go Al.
What's your number five?
Well, my number five, I'm going with one of the first albums I ever heard by this artist. It was kind of by accident, because I told this story before. My dad owned an apartment. The guy left behind everything in his apartment, albums and all this stuff. And
nice.
One of the albums was it's actually a cassette. Remember when they used to put like two albums on a cassette?
Yep.
One on each side, and this was like a double cassette thing. So it was Frank Zappa's Apostrophe and an Overnight Sensation. So I'm going with the Overnight Sensation because that was released in '73. It's like one of the first albums I ever heard by him, and as a kid, you're hearing Camarillo Brillo, and you're kind of not understanding what's going on. I'm like, what is he singing about? And then like Dirty Love and I'm the Slime and Zombie Wolf and Dynamo Hum, and it's a lot of sexual stuff going on. And I don't know, probably I was like 12, 13 years old when I heard this. And
you're like 12 or 13, and you're like hearing one of the greatest songs about a threesome ever written.
Yeah, exactly. So and it ended up, I like Zappa then, but I didn't, for years though, I didn't go beyond those two albums. I didn't really go seeking out. Yeah. So it was only those two albums that I had, and I listened to them all the time. But I never went and seeked out anything else until later on when I had a friend who was a huge Zappa fanatic, and we ended up being in a band together and became friends. He married one of my best friend's sister, and they've since divorced, but we still keep in touch and we're still friends. And he's like the biggest Zappa fan. I mean, his collection's insane. But I remember, he was like, "You got to branch out. Like, he would let me borrow a couple more albums," and I became a Zappa fan real like big time, and
Yeah.
and I only wish this kind of happened after Zappa stopped touring. So his last tour was in '88. I didn't really get into him probably till like '89, 90 or whatever. It was when I really started getting into him. And he wasn't touring anymore, unfortunately, so I never got to see him live. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Overnight Sensations, my number five. I love that album. It's such a great album. It's one of the albums that I'll suggest to somebody who's just getting into Zappa. It's always Overnight Sensation and Apostrophe. Get those two albums. If you like
Yeah.
those, then you can start branching out. Because he touches on so many different styles of music. There might be some stuff and it's kind of like I kind of not that into and all that stuff. But I mean, he's so vast and broad. It's insane. The stuff that he was a modern day composer, man.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. He was. And what
so
was
that's
great
fine.
was that he. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's unbelievable, man.
And what's so
I
great
mean,
about him?
I think the world is still trying to catch up to him. He's just so ahead of his time. It's if nobody's ever seen Dweezil do his dad's stuff, go see Zappa play Zappa. That stuff is great, man. And Dweezil's awesome, man. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I've
I
seen
saw
them
that
guys.
one.
God, I've seen Dweezil, a bunch of times. It's been at least over 10 times I've seen him already.
Wow.
Right.
So that's my
Yeah.
number five.
Yeah. I've seen that Zappa play Zappa once, and dude, it blew me away. I thought.
Oh
I
yeah,
kind of, and the
and
thing
and
about
and,
Frank
and
Zappa was
Dweezil,
that. I'm sorry.
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, Dweezil said I think it took him like 2 or 3 years to really like rehearse and like get before he
Wow.
even before he even got the Zappa off the ground touring. I think for 2 years he locked himself down to learn the material, and it took him like 2 years, to
Wow.
finally have a band rehearse with him and all that stuff. It's complex, man.
Yeah.
It's not easy listening stuff, man. You know.
No.
So
And so odd that it took him so long to learn it when it's been around him his whole life.
yeah,
That's all he
yeah.
knew. Ever since
Well,
he was able to
well, he
know
was
what
a
music is.
disciple. He was a disciple of Eddie Van Halen, Randy Rhoads, like that
Yeah.
style. So that was like when he was a kid, But I mean, when you're going into Zappa world, man, it's like a whole different world of like stuff, man. I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
the intricacies of that music is insane, man. That's why nobody in this band can be stoned. How can you play that stuff, man? You know, he would fire
Uh,
somebody if, for drugs or whatever. So, you know,
and also another great thing about Zappa was that he was so young that he took control of his career. He took control of the recording companies. He told them what he wanted,
yeah,
and if they weren't going to do it, he'll go somewhere else, or he'll find
yep,
his own label. He'll do it himself.
yep.
He wasn't going to conform to the radio or to what was out there. So that's a great thing about Zappa. Every album is an adventure. You never know
And just
what you're going to get.
and just listen to some of the players out on this album. You got George Duke on here.
Yeah,
You got Jean-Luc Ponty. You know what I mean? And then his, Ruth Underwood, Ian Underwood. I mean, Ralph Humphrey, and even Tina Turner was on this album.
yeah, yeah,
So it's crazy,
yeah,
man.
yep. The
I'm
Mike
going.
Getz are on there singing
Yeah, I'm going to
backing
Montana.
vocals.
I'm going to Montana.
Yeah, and when they were in talks about it, Ike said, "Yeah, sure. Well, why not? I know it's going to listen to that crap anyway." Well, you know what? Frank Zappa has long lived Ike Turner. I can tell you that. Um,
Oh man.
my next one. I'm sorry. Were you done now?
No, no, no. Go ahead, man. I'm done.
I had put it away because I
Oh.
wasn't going to do it, and then I want to, and then hold on.
And
I
he's
was kind of
going.
going. I was kind of going back and forth on this album, listening to it like right before we came on. I don't know where I placed it, so I will just go on with my original pick. Um, the little old band from Texas, of
Oh
course.
wow.
Talk
Yeah.
about Tres Hombres
Yeah.
in 1973. They really put their brand into music here. I mean, this
Oh
was their
yeah.
stamp. Um, Waiting for the Bus. Jesus just left Chicago. Dude, fucking Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers.
Great song.
Man, you don't get anything better than that. Hot Blue and
No.
Righteous. That really slow burner blues. That they at least have at least one track on there, and it ends with Have You Heard? Have You Heard? And Lagrange. Lagrange is one of their all-time classics, and I like the inside of it. The just Mexican fruit from Texas. That's all.
Nice.
That's it. But yeah, ZZ Top's Lagrange, and yep. So what's your number 4, Brad?
Yeah, and I do have to say, Beer Drinkers, Hellraisers. That's a song
Oh, I
I've
love
always
that song.
always wanted to play with the band, but haven't. There's still time, right? Okay.
Oh yeah, you got
I've,
a lot
I've,
of time.
I've played Lagrange more times than I can count.
Ugh.
I remember since we're blowing so fast here, a quick story. My band in the 80s that was doing quite well, we were auditioning guitar players, and it was just amazing how bad these guys were that came in, and especially some of these guys that just thought they were great and they weren't. I mean, it was like an American Idol audition almost. It was that bad.
Yeah.
I remember this one guy came in and he said, yeah, my name's Bob, but my friends call me Bobcat. So I said, well, we'll call you Bob. And then he was not good. And then he wanted to stick around. He goes, well, you guys, you got more auditions. Oh yeah, we got 5 more guys coming in. He goes, can I stick around? Because I probably know these guys. And like, no, you're out of here. Out of here, Bob.
You're out of here, Bobcat.
But we had this one guy who showed up, and this guy he was a super nice guy, but he really couldn't play very well. And so we're like, we gave him some stuff to learn and he couldn't learn it. So I said, well, tell us a song you know. And he said, Lagrange. And he said, okay, we'll play that with you. And we played it with him, and he did okay. But he was such a nice guy. He's like, afterward, he said, can we play it again? Because I've never been able to play with guys before. And like, yeah, sure, we'll play it again with you. And yeah, so there was a nice guy who couldn't play, and we let him stick around, played at Lagrange twice with him. And Bob, well, we sent him on his way. Okay. My number, and I really don't think we were being dicks. Okay. It's kind of like, yeah, you're going to come in here, act like a dick. Well, okay. Frank Zappa is my number 4. And yeah, Overnight Sensation. What an album. The production on that album is just, I don't know. I just love it. I mean, Frank didn't do a lot of real bona fide studio stuff, but when he did, it just sounded fantastic. And this album is right there with it. His guitar tones are just, especially this album, I think his guitar tones are fantastic. I mean, the leads are just like biting and very well. I know he didn't like write out his leads or anything. He just jammed, but they're just on point. And Montana is like one of my all-time favorite Zappa songs. So yeah, great album. And you talk about guys who didn't do the same album over and over. That's Frank Zappa. I mean, he went through so many different periods of different people in the band and would take on the kind of flavor of what's going on. Plus, he was just going in different places. But Al's right about this. If you don't know anything about Frank Zappa, this is a great place to start. Personally, when people ask me, I always push them towards one size fits all, because I feel like it does fit all, because it's kind of rock, jazz. I mean, I think across the board, it's more accessible. And although there's plenty of weird stuff in it too.
Yeah, there is.
But yeah, when I was a kid, when I bought this in '73, plus the album cover just freaked me out. I'm like, I can't look at this. I just can't. Yeah, there's an orange. Is it an orange on there or something that's rotting? And it's like, I can't look at this. Like, this is the weirdest album cover in history of weird. But as a 13-year-old kid listening to Dynamo Hum, I often felt like I'm not so sure I should be listening to this.
Right, you're turning down low.
I mean, I just still cranked it up. I still don't know why my mom, who had to listen to all this stuff because I was playing it, and my dad wasn't around. But why my mom never came in and said, "What the hell is this?" Never once. No, she was always cool and supportive. So great album though. If you haven't heard it, get on it, man, and be ready. And don't listen to a couple of minutes and go, oh, this isn't for me. Listen to the whole thing. And you got make it all the way through Dynamo Hum, and it's weird as hell.
Yeah, the thing is that all these albums that we talk about in this show, they're pieces of work. You know, not just this episode, but in everything we talk about in Black Spinner Circle and the BS sessions and other podcasts that we're on. All these are pieces of work. They're not just a song that we like. This is a way of our musical life, you know. So also, if I don't know if y'all are able to see the comments, but Will Toast is putting his comments on.
Hey, Will.
Are y'all able to see them when I'm?
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
I'm seeing that one now. Let me see. I better get in the comment.
All right. What's your number 4?
Will, I got to catch up here.
Yeah. What's your number 4?
Glasses on.
So my number 4.
Will. Good choices, Will.
Yeah.
Like it.
So my number 4 is going to be my favorite Elton John album, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road.
On Will's list.
Yeah, dude. This to me, this is prime Elton. I've always loved this album, even when I was a kid. Funeral for a Friend and Love Lies Bleeding is my favorite song by him. It's just probably him at his proggiest, but just such an epic. And I just love the journey that the song takes you through. And when I saw Elton last summer live and he played it, I went nuts. I was like a little kid again, you know, when he's playing. I was like, yes, you know. And my wife and daughter were like looking at me like, Dad, calm down. You know? But I was just having my teenage moment, and when they went into that song, man, I was just going nuts. But I mean, Candle in the Wind, Benny the Jets, you know, Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, one of the best double albums there is. You know, Elton is just like, he was a bucket list guy to see live because I'd never seen him until last summer. And I ended up picking my wife and my daughter, and my daughter was just starting to get into him. I'm like, yeah, you're going to see a legend. He's not going to tour anymore. It's supposedly what he says. And I tend to believe it. He'll probably do concerts here and there, but maybe has full tours. He's probably slowing down on that stuff. So, but yeah, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. That's one of the greatest double albums. I love Elton when he's rocking, man. When he's got like his band like just kicking ass, and yeah, I love it, man. But it's got the melodic stuff that he's so great at too. It's just a perfect album to me, man. So you know,
he had a great band back then too.
Oh, yeah. And he had that band with him to this day. And when you know, Davy Johnstone, and you know, I mean, I think Dee Murray's gone, but he passed away, I think.
Yeah, great bass player.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, he's got as a bass player, he's got Matt Bissonette. Greg
famous for David Lee Roth.
Yeah, so he's got him in there. He's a great bass player too. So, you know, but he was great, man. So that's my number 4. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road.
Yeah, when I saw him, I bought the cup for Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. It's got the album cover on it. It's pretty sweet. But yeah, I saw him probably a couple of years ago here, and man, he played everything. You know, he played everything you would ever want to hear. You know, so
definitely
good stuff. My number 4, it's been talked about already. Houses of the Holy by Led Zeppelin. Great album. You know, I know some people complain about a couple of songs on there. I still complain about Dire Maker.
Yeah.
It's not one of my favorites by far.
And they played the crap out of that on the radio when I was a kid. Yeah. I'm like, why are you playing this so much? But I'm sure there's people that love it.
Oh yeah. There's some people that's their favorite. And it was released as a single as well. But for me, the rest of the album is just too good that Dire Maker doesn't pull it down that much. Even though I let it play through, that's fine. So I'm not going to get up and move the needle and, you know, skip this and skip that. So I just let it play through. I mean, it's not that bad of a song. I make it sound like it's the worst thing to listen to, but you know what? If they would have put Houses of the Holy in there instead of in Physical Graffiti and replace Diary Maker with the title track. Whew, damn.
Yeah, that's one of those weird things where the
title track is not on
the song
the
isn't on the album. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes me think that Def Leppard kind of, because they copied the whole Led Zeppelin, Def Leppard. They did that with On Through the Night. It's like, we're not going to put it on the album. We'll put it on the
This would
next.
be a high and dry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
So
Yeah, it was on High and Dry.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Right. So Andy, what's your favorite song off this album?
I'm sorry, I was gonna say Diary Maker. I've got two favorites that I can't pick from, but it's going to have to be No Quarter.
Oh, that's a
Love
good
No
one.
Quarter.
Good
It's
one.
so moody.
Yep.
And of course, the way that it starts off with, the song remains the same.
Yeah.
I think
good
Jimmy
one.
just jams on that.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, even today, even though I've heard that song so many times, it still sounds like they're going off the rails and you don't know which way they're going to go. And then they bring it back controlled. It's just amazing how him and Bonham just go off that. It's just, I know it doesn't go like that, but you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first track, it's just an amazing song.
Yeah. Great stuff.
So we're at number 3.
Yes, we are. And it looks like Will's pimping out my number 3 pick here. Still alive and well. This is another, Johnny Winter. He was my gateway to rock music. I mean, he's the guy that inspired me to want to actually play.
Wow.
Because the first album I got was Johnny Winter and live, and that's that. It's like the power. But this album, when this album came out, it's great. It's raw, but it sounds really good. I love the songs on it. It rocks. I mean, it's bluesy, but it rocks, and I love everything about it. So
I heard Johnny was pretty loud back in the day, man.
Yeah, that unfortunately, he's another. Well, he's one of the few that I never got to see. I had tickets to see him.
I saw him once.
Did you?
Yeah, I saw him and Edgar. They toured together in the 2000s, and they played a club here in New Jersey. And dude, to see, I mean, they had to help Johnny out, and he sat down and played. But it was still, I got to see him play, and he was just killing it on guitar, man. He's just amazing to see him play. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And I loved it, man. You know, both of them, seeing both of them. I mean, they both played 2 different sets. They didn't play. I think he came out during Johnny's set, though. I think Edgar came out and played with him a little bit and stuff. But yeah, it was great, man. It was really, really cool to see. And I'm glad I got to see him because how long ago did he die already? He passed away. What, 5 years?
Hey, Will, how long ago did he pass away? Well,
6 or 7, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Edgar, the day he died, Edgar was actually playing here. Actually, where I live. He was playing at a car wash here, believe it or not. But it was him and Pat Travers, and they got together afterward and did a tribute to Johnny and played some songs together, which was really cool. It was either the day he died or the day after he died, and so they got together and said, "Hey, let's do. I want to do a tribute to my brother." And it's very, very, very cool. But yeah, Johnny, his guitar playing, he's one of the guys that I just never get tired of listening to. His guitar playing. Very.
This past year in the Grammys, Edgar Winter won a Grammy for Best Blues Album by redoing all of Johnny's songs.
Yep.
And I think it's called Brother John.
Yeah, there's two that Edgar wrote for him that are on that album. But other than that, there were songs, that Johnny had either written or had been a big part of his life.
Yeah, he won a Grammy for like Best Blues
album. It's a great album. If you guys, if you haven't heard it, anybody out there, if you haven't heard it, pick it up or just stream it. Listen to it. It's really good, really well put together. Now, I've kind of gotten away from enjoying people redoing other people's songs for the most part. It's very rare I hear one now that's like, that's really good. But I think Edgar does an incredibly wonderful job on those songs. So great versions.
Yeah, and I think he does do very good care of it. In fact, the name of the album is called Brother Johnny.
Yep.
Just the song, just the title of it, just so you know, because those guys were so close. They each would play on each other's albums quite a bit.
Yep.
That they would help each other out quite a bit. And I don't know, is Johnny buried here in Beaumont? I've always wondered that.
He should be. I don't know. That's a great question.
That's something to go look for. Like for real.
Yeah.
Like for real. Where are we at? Al, number 3.
Number 3, I'm going with Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd.
Ooh.
A lot of people will put that at number 1. I'm gonna put that at number 3. I'm going with importance of albums when I was growing up, and this was definitely up there. It wasn't the most important one though to me. It probably is the most complete, like Brad was saying. I think he was saying before. I think because it was on your list already, right?
Yeah.
Right, Brad? Yeah, earlier on your list. So.
Yeah. I was going to make this number 1, but like I said, I kind of went with this albums I've listened to the most.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I can't remember, like I said, the last time I listened to it, but I knew that album inside out when I was 13, 14.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is one of those albums where it's like, even if you're not a big Pink Floyd fan, it's the one that's in the casual, person's collection. That one album. Almost a lot of the classic bands have that one album where it's usually going to be like, if you're going to have one album, that's going to be the one in your collection, even if you're not a big fan of that band. But I mean, hey, listen, man, the album speaks for itself. The album is awesome. It's one of the greatest selling albums of all time for a reason, because it's constructed so well, it flows so well, and my daughter's really been getting into the Great Gig in the Sky, that song. She really, which I mean, it's great for me. She's getting into it, so I'm like, she's always like throwing me like texting me like YouTube links. Dad, I'm
Cool.
really into this song now, and it just makes me proud, and I love it that she's getting into like more classic stuff, and she's all over the place. I'm not saying it's only like that stuff. I mean, she's eclectic like me. She goes, you know, she loves a lot of different stuff, and I think that's great.
You should like different stuff.
Yeah,
that's right. How old is she, Al?
Hey, listen, me?
No, how old is she?
She's 14.
Yeah.
So she's really getting into that.
You're old enough to have a 14-year-old?
Why, do I look that young?
Yeah, you see like a young
dude.
dude.
I did shave the beard.
There you go.
I'm like smooth.
That's cool. That's really cool to have a kid that you can share your music loves with.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So she's really getting into the Great Gig in the Sky. She loves the girl's voice on there.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, well, it's great. Well, let's sit down and listen to the rest of the album one of these days. And you got to really listen to it from beginning to end. It takes you on a journey. Because you know how kids are nowadays. It's just like a song here, a song there.
Yeah.
And I try to explain to her, well, listen, you got to listen to the album. It's a complete piece of art, complete piece of work. You really gotta, sit down and check it out.
Yeah, it's something you got to turn the lights out and be there alone, so you don't have any distractions. You got to just take it in. If you got headphones, that's the way to do it.
Yeah. So yeah, this album has been discussed to death, so I'm not going to go too much further. So Dark Side's my number 3.
My number 3 is an album that man, I don't talk about much, and I really should. In fact, they were my number 1 album in 1971. I think when we did it, that was my number 1 album by this band. This time they fall at number 3. It's their second rock opera. The first one, which is more popular, is one that I don't like at all. I'm not a big fan of the Who's Tommy, but I'm a huge fan of Quadrophenia. This album is just amazing. It never stops. Yeah, it's a double album. It tells the story of the early mods of the in England in the early to mid 60s, but where Tommy seems to lag in parts with long, pieces that can be a little bit too quiet. This Quadrophenia is just full of bombastic music. It's just so in your face. It's so epic. Um, I played it last night to see where I was going to put it, and after I heard it, it turned out being higher than I thought it would be. So that's my number three, the Who Quadrophenia.
Good choice.
Yeah, it's a great choice, man.
Okay. All right, number two. This was going to be my number one because again, at that point in my life, this was my favorite album. Looking back over all of their catalog, it's my favorite album. Blue Oyster Cult.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Mutation. I just love this album. I love the way the songs transition with little synth things going on in between there, and the album is, and I love the sound of it, the production on it, and I think Albert's drumming is just off the charts on this thing. His hi-hat work is unbelievable. And yeah, Hot Rails to Hell might be one of my all-time favorite songs, probably because I'm a bass player, and my first couple of bands that we played that and I sang it. So not that I sang it well, but I did sing it. Great album. So if you've never heard this album, you need to listen to it from start to finish. And the Red and the Black. Yeah, I think I told the story on here about when I lived in Fresno for a while. The radio station there, you could call in and request songs, and I kept calling in and requesting the Red and the Black, and the guy would say, "Okay, we'll play that." And of course, they never did. Yeah. And then finally, the guy, when I called up, he says, "Look," he says, "we're not going to play that song." I was like, "Why the hell are you going to play that song?" He goes, "Because it's not a radio song." I was like, "I don't even know what that means. What do you mean it's not a radio song?" It's like, geez, man, this is like kick-ass. Yeah, so guess what? I have a radio station, Yard Metal, and we play the Red and Black.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because it is a radio song.
That so funny. Oh yeah, well one day I'm gonna have my own radio station. I'll play whatever I want. Yeah, whatever, kid. But you'll see.
Got it.
That's right. And when somebody requests me to play a song, I'll play it. Even if it's a song I don't like, I'll play it. Except for, people tell me it's like, hey, I want to hear Crazy Train. It's like, really?
You can hear that anywhere.
Yeah, you can hear that. Yeah, like, seriously,
you can hear that at the grocery store.
I will play that, but it's not going to be the version that you it's going to be it'll be the live version. So with Randy Rhoads, of course, because it would be wrong to play any other live version. So
you're right. But Will Toth did message me that Johnny Winter is buried in Connecticut.
Oh, interesting. Wonder if he was living there. Who did that? Will?
Yeah, Will.
He passed 2014, I think you said.
Yeah, he passed in 2014.
It's been that long? Wow.
Yeah.
Oh. I remember when he came out on that. When he made a performance on the Bob Dylan's 50th anniversary or 25th anniversary, and he did what did he do?
Highway 61.
Highway 61 Revisited, and man, he played the hell out of that song with that slide.
Yep.
He played the hell out of it. Man, it was a great rendition.
Yeah.
Great stuff. What's your number two, Al?
Well, my number two, I grew up around this band so much because it was my brother's favorite band. For a long time, it was my favorite band too, and we just gotta go Zeppelin, House of the Holy, man. I remember seeing that cover as a kid, man. I'm like, what are these making kids do? It's like you can't even show that on Facebook; it'll get taken down.
Really?
It's like, yeah. You can't like post it, or it gets like flagged or whatever, and it's just a piece of art, man. It's not even like exploiting anything, and it's just ridiculous what. People with the revisionist history and all that shit. But anyway, getting into the album though, for me, it's not Jamaica or Dire Maker, whatever you want to pronounce it. It's not that song that really is the weak song for me. It's The Crunge is my song that I kind of, it could have been replaced by something else.
kind of makes you cringe.
Yeah, it's them trying to be funky, and it's leave the funkiness to James Brown. Right? You know what I
Hey,
mean? But that was Zeppelin, man. The Zeppelin was they touched on so many different
Yeah.
styles within an album. So they could be folky, they could be hard and funky and whatever. But I mean, this album was awesome. But
Yeah.
I agree. I think the title track should have been on this album. It would have been cool if it was on this. Probably would have made it a perfect album. But still, it was one of the albums I listened to a lot growing up, man. Because my brother had all their vinyl, and he used to come home with a Zeppelin album like that he just bought. He had the ritual. You take off the cellophane, or he actually was pretty particular. He would just slit it down, take the album out. Unless the album was a gatefold, then you'd have to take it all the way off. But he's very meticulous with his albums, and he used to put the album on, look at the artwork, the liner notes, and all that stuff. And I
Yeah.
would watch him do this as a kid, and I'm like, wow, this is really cool.
It means
And
something. Yeah.
it's a lost art now. I mean,
Yeah.
but I mean, the research is a vinyl. And there's a lot of kids that are into the vinyl thing again, which is cool. As long as like physical
Hard copy.
product is being sold, and being bought, and I'm all for it, man.
Yeah.
Regardless if it's CD, vinyl, cassette, whatever. But yeah, number 2 would be House of the Holy, and that's really it. I don't have much else to say. The song remains the same. It's a great opener on that, though, man.
Oh,
It is.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the ocean and No Quarter is my favorite. I mean, the No Quarter version on the song remains the same. The live album,
Woo-hoo-hoo.
where it
Fuck yeah.
showcases, John Paul Jones. Just amazing, man. I mean, that song takes you on a journey.
Yeah.
So I love that song. It's one of my favorite Zeppelin. Definitely a top 10 Zeppelin song for me is No Quarter. So, but that live version is just insane.
And
It's probably
some,
like
I'm sorry.
probably like 15 minutes long, man, or something. So it's pretty
Yeah.
pretty lengthy.
Yeah.
So
And some critics, when that Double Live album came out, it wasn't very
it
well
got
received.
panned.
And
No,
I don't
yeah,
know
it got
why, because I think it's fantastic. It's
yeah.
awesome.
And they said that it wasn't one of Zeppelin's best moments, but when I was a kid and my brother used to take me to the midnight showings for that, it was just an event. People would go there and it's like almost like being at a Zeppelin concert. People would just be so into it. You pot smoke in there, and it was great, man. Being a kid, like seeing Jimmy Page up on a big screen, in his dragon suit, and it was just such an impression. I mean, it made me one of the reasons why I wanted to play guitar. I wanted to be him, man. In the beginning when I was a kid, with the Les Paul slung low and all that. I mean, who hasn't he influenced? So
Yeah.
yeah, man. So that's my number 2, House of the Holy, the Mighty Zepp.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that album has the most different genre bending songs on that one album.
Yeah, it's got a lot of variety on this
Yeah,
album.
you go for the proto metal, and then to a nice quiet acoustic song like the Rain song, and
Oh,
then
that's a
back
beautiful
to a
song.
blues song, and then
You
you
know,
got the crunch, which is
they
different.
played the Rain song the other day. Like I just happened to flip the radio on, and it was like the first day of spring a couple of
Yeah.
days ago, and the DJ was doing a theme, and she happened to play the Rain song, and then it was like it just started. I'm like, you know what? I really want to listen to this. I mean, it's so beautiful that the arrangement of that song and Page's guitar and the tunings that he uses on that and all that, it's just all crafted. That's that Rain song, man. It's just so beautiful, dude.
Yeah, Page is just amazing. He's more than just a blues guitarist extraordinaire.
Man.
When he picks that
Yeah.
acoustic, whew, there's almost nobody better.
Again, he needs to be name checked as one of the great producers, man. And
Yeah.
he very rarely gets. Everybody talks about Eddie Kramer and Mutt Lange and blah 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 blah. Nobody
Mutt
ever
Lange.
really talks about Jimmy Page, man. But he was an insane producer. I kind of wish, like after the whole Zeppelin thing, he went on to produce like other bands. He would have been. I think that would have been a great calling for him, but he didn't.
Yeah.
he didn't really go that route. So
Produced
know.
the Firm.
well, yeah, but that was his band too.
Yeah, I know.
So
Well,
anyway,
my
go ahead,
number
man.
2. I'm going to open up the whole gatefold for my number 2 because it's fantastic. Look at that whole thing.
It's scaring Brad, man.
Yeah, it's scary, Brad. There's
man.
that orange, Brad.
Oh,
Oh,
the worst thing about that is I have a good friend that I grew up with, and his bedroom kind of looked like that.
my light's in the way.
Oh,
Let me see if I can open it better. Where there's there's still going to be interference.
yeah.
But man, I tell you what, one of the first times I ever tried hallucinogens, we threw this album on, and man, it freaked me out, man. My uncle who got me into Zappa, he would make me these cassettes off of his albums, and he lived here in Houston. I lived in Corpus, and when he would come and visit, he would bring me cassettes that he would make me copies of. That's what got me into, this whole thing. And I remember he had brought me this on the other side, Apostrophe, and he also brought me Shake Your Booty. I remember all that in one trip, and I just thought it was amazing, especially this album. Um, I'm not going to go on and on about it because we already talked all about it, but I Am the Slime for the video. It just talks about what the TV is, man. The slime. It's a slime that comes out of your TV set. You obey me. It's true, man. We sit around too much watching television. Turn on the radio or throw on some music. A lot better. So that's my number 2.
I love the way that he layers vocals on that, where he do the really low part, and then which he couldn't do that live, but it's just cool.
And then y'all talked about his guitar tone.
Yep.
His guitar tone on that album is just so kick ass, where it's front and center. And like y'all were saying, the guest of the albums on there. You got George Duke, you got Ponce de Luc, not Ponce de Luc.
Jean-Luc Ponty.
I was gonna say Ponce de Leon.
Yeah, Jean-Luc Ponty was it? Jean-Luc Ponty was in Ma Vishnu Orchestra.
There you go.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so there you go. So we're kind of crossing things over there. And that's Jen. Thank you. That's Maggie. She had to jump up for a moment
to be on. All right, guys. We're up to number 1. What is your number 1 album of 1973? Brad.
Yeah, this again, it was going to be Blue Oyster Cult, but then when I looked at this album, I was like, doggone it. This album, I mean, one of the very first songs I ever learned to play on the bass was Rock Candy. And that whole, I mean, Al is so right. I didn't realize this because I had that album when it first came out. I don't know why, probably because of Rock Candy. I heard somebody play it. And I just figured, well, I'm listening to this album. Everybody else is listening to this too. But not the case. It was not a big album, but I consider it a perfect album. I mean, I loved every song on there. A few of the bands I've been in, we played some of the really like songs nobody ever heard of off of that album. And they're just fun to play. I'm pretty sure I've played every song off that album with a band.
Oh, wow.
And it's just straightforward rock, man. Check out on YouTube some of the footage. I know Old Gray Whistle Test has Montrose playing a couple of songs right after this album. And that's what rock and roll is to me. Those guys are going for it. I mean, going for it. Everybody in the band, everybody's on the edge. Danny Carmassi is one of my all-time favorite drummers. I've seen him so many times, and he's like fun to watch. Ronnie Montrose, I know I saw him once with Gamma. I think it was on the Gamma 3 tour, where they would start off the show. He would run out on stage just playing guitar, and I remember sitting there watching him, going, "This is probably the greatest guitar player in the world." I mean, he was just doing stuff. He's very reserved on the album compared to what is live. And so I don't think a lot of people realize just what an incredible guitarist he was. He would just play that, you just watch him go, how is he doing that? I mean, it's just insane. Great player. Obviously a troubled guy. I know that my band, the studio that we recorded in here, at the time, Ronnie Montrose came in here to produce a local band here in Utah that produced their demo. And then they were using this studio. And Ronnie walked in and he took one look at the bathroom and he walked out and he says, "I'm not coming back until that's clean." so we were working in the off hours there. The guy who owned the place is like, "So when do you guys want to clean the bathroom?" Like, hell no. It really was rough, man. It was bad. But so he did clean it. But yeah, I always remember that about Ronnie. It was like, I'm not going to work in this studio until that bathroom's clean. But
unfortunately, I never got to see him live, man. I wish I did.
I saw him twice with Montrose, but it was after Sammy Hagar.
Yeah.
And so after the Warner Brothers album, that was when I first saw Kiss in '75. They were warming up. And I didn't even know that album because all I knew was the first Montrose album. And they only played a couple of songs off it. Bob James was the singer then.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of, plus I was there to see Kiss. So I was just kind of like, I can't really just absorb how good this is. But I saw him play again after the Jump On It album. And they had no bass player, which I thought was kind of a blasphemy. The keyboard, Jim Alciver, yeah, he played the bass on the keyboards. But just watching Danny Carmassi in both of those shows was enough for me.
Cool.
The guy's just, he's one of my favorite drummers to watch as well as listen to. The guy's incredible. So there you go. Montrose, number one for me.
Wow.
It's so funny that you mentioned that because I think it was 1980 or 81 where you picked Gamma 2 as your number one or number two. It was very high up.
Yeah.
When we did that list. And I remember you were talking about Gamma then too.
I love those first three Gamma albums. I was lucky enough to see them four times Gamma. The funniest time was actually at the country club in Reseda. And my brother and I were just talking about this the other day. And the warm-up band was Ranger, who turned into Night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it was funny because Al Fitzgerald, maybe one of the, we got the number one Al in the world right here. And Al Fitzgerald, he's probably like maybe cracking the top 10 as far as bestAls. But it's funny, he looked so out of place with those guys because he looked really old. He's probably in his 30s. But we're all standing there watching these guys going, God, that's pretty nice that they let their dad play keyboards with them. But he was actually a hell of a bass player. He played bass on the first Gamma album. You listen to some of the stuff he did on there.
He became the bass player on the second Montrose album, right?
He played the bass on the second Montrose album. You're right.
Yeah.
Well, Paper Money, I think it was.
Bill Church left after the first one, so
yeah, which is weird. If you watch him live, watch that old footage and Bill Church playing bass, he was a monster on the bass. I can't remember why they said they fired him, but I mean, why Ronnie fired him anyway? Because he ended up in Sammy Hagar's band when Sammy left Montrose. So, but
Sammy pretty much ended up with that. I mean, like that whole band pretty much ended up.
He did.
Band, I think Danny.
Denny and Bill Church went with him. So he was everything but Ronnie. Yeah, you're right. But music wasn't quite as kick-ass, but but he had the band.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah. Oh, wait a second. Will said something here about Children of the Sun. I'm not sure what he was talking about there. And great.
Yeah, I saw that, but wasn't too sure.
Yeah, Will. Will, you got to explain that. No. If not here, send me a message.
Because he said BOC, great record. That's not on.
No, that's not a BOC. Yeah, I mean, I think Children of the Sun was a Billy Thorpe song, and I only know about that song because of Leland Sklar, who played on it, and which what a cool dude. Not only great bass player, but what a cool dude. He was talking about it somewhere, and I'm like, you talk about how great it was to work with Billy Thorpe, who's I guess Australian, and again, an album hardly anybody knows about. So I'm like, I got to listen to this, and it is a pretty cool song. So, it's not a cover; that's the original. So,
well, let's see.
All right, Al. Let's hear what Al's number one is. I'm dying here. It's not. I was hoping there'd be a Rush album in '73, but it was just too early.
No, it was too early.
Won't be until next year. But well, listen, my number one is one of my favorite albums. It's one of my favorite bands of all time, and it's actually my favorite album by this band, and it's Sabbath Bloody Sabbath by Black Sabbath. That's my number one, man. I got to
Great
go with
choice.
that one. This album just yeah, Will, I know not Fade Away, and I know they had a single in '73, yeah, but it's not an album
Good one, Will.
though. But yeah, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. I mean, possibly could be the first progressive metal album. I mean, if you really want to, I kind of tend to think that 2112 is like ground zero for prog metal. With all the time changes and the musicianship and all that. Not to say that Sabbath did not musicianship, they did. They had Rick Wakeman on this album,
Mhm.
and there's, I mean, it's my favorite album by Sabbath. Sometimes, and we could switch with Sabotage or Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, but Sabbath Bloody Sabbath I always come back to, and I used to be in a band. We used to play National Acrobat, which is a great song. I love that
Okay.
song, man. It's like one of my favorites.
You had somebody who could sing that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I always thought that when they slowed the tape down for Ozzy to sing on it, because I was like, how could you possibly sing that high?
Yeah,
That
and
yeah.
again, I always come back to this. Like this album and Sabotage. If you're gonna say that Ozzy didn't have range, like try singing some of this stuff.
No,
It's
you
just
can't.
it's incredible. He had incredible range. I mean, his voice was different than Ryan James Dio's. That's not to say that he did not have an incredible voice. This to me, this was peak Ozzy at his peak, man. Singing
I
wise,
don't think Ronnie could sing those songs. National
it's just
Acrobat.
so high, man. It's
That
just the way
was
he sang it. Yeah, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. I mean, Spiral Architect is just a masterpiece. The way they end the album with the
oh,
orchestra and everything, the orchestration in it, and I worshiped this album when I was a kid growing up. Sabbath was, and it's still my top three bands. So
yeah.
got to go with
Talk about that
go with Sabbath.
album cover too.
What's that?
Talk about that album cover too. I mean,
Oh,
that's
yeah, I remember.
funny. When I was a kid, I never really even looked at it that close, I guess. And then later, I'm like, holy crap, how did this get on the,
Yeah, I had to hide that from my
doors?
parents, man. No, I wouldn't let them.
Yeah.
My mom would have threw holy water on me. You're possessed. So, but that's my number one, man. Andy, go ahead, man. Take it away.
Bring us home, Andy. He's still looking for it.
Oh, you want me to? I think you're muted, right?
He is.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. I was muted because my dogs are barking too much.
Okay.
But
Is there just the right amount of barking that we go for here?
But my number one is going to be Dark Side of the Moon. Of course, it's one of my favorite albums of all time. It's in my top 20. When we were going to do this, I knew that this was going to be my number one, bar none.
Yeah.
I still hear it a lot. Just this time around, I was listening to their 2011 remaster on CD because back in 2011 they released a remastered version, and along with it was a live version that they had done at Olympic, I think.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and they
I think it
play
was
Dark Side of the
74.
Moon live, and pretty
Yeah.
sloppy too, if I can add. Pretty sloppy for Pink Floyd, especially for such a precision-like album. But yeah, Dark Side of the Moon. We all know the songs, even not just us, but but people watching out there like Will and Jan. We all know these songs from beginning to end. We love them. Every song is played on the radio. Of course, that's the sign of one of the greatest albums of all time. You can put Boston in there, where they play every single song on the radio, and a couple of others, but Dark Side of the Moon. And you're right. I mean, I'm glad that your daughter is getting into it, but man, to hear the whole thing is an experience.
Yeah.
I know that it changed the way that I perceived music because it's a fantastic piece of art. So that's my number one is Pink Floyd's
That's
Dark Side of
awesome,
the
man.
Moon. But not only do we have 10, we also have a plus 5 up there for our 5 albums that didn't quite make the cut. So let's go ahead. Go ahead and let's say before we do our honorable mentions, Jen, who's watching us, her top 5 is number 1 is Houses of the Holy, number 2 Tales of the Topographic Ocean, 3 Deep Purple's Who Do We Think We Are, number 4 Thin Lizzy's Vagabonds of the Western World, and number 5 is going to be her number 5 is Nazareth Razamanaz.
Good one, man.
Very good picks. Very good picks. All right, so let's get to let's just go ahead and say all of our 5 all at once. Or
oh, not all at the same time.
Yeah.
All right, I'll hit mine really quick.
No, it doesn't have to be quick.
No, it will be quick because I don't want to expound on these, but let's see. 2 of the Alice Cooper, I said he had a second album. This was actually the last Alice Cooper band album, and it's Muscle of Love. Ooh. And I love that album, especially the very first song, Big Apple Dreamin'. Yeah, drop the needle on that, and that's a fantastic song. I know that the band was pretty much falling apart when they did this album, so that's kind of tragic. But
which album is that?
Muscle of Love.
Muscle of Love.
Oh, Muscle of Love. So they had 2 albums out in the '73, right?
Yeah, $1 Billion Babies and then Muscle of Love. So that's
which is kind of a normal thing for a lot of bands back in the day.
At that time.
Yeah, it was kind of an annual. I mean, back then they would put out an album tour, put out an album tour, and it's kind of changed. Okay, the other that had a second album was David Bowie, and that album was Pinups. At the time, I didn't realize these were all covers because I didn't know the rest of those. I didn't know those songs.
Yeah, of course.
There's some really actually. Since I heard these first, I do like a lot of these better than the original, and I think Bowie had a pretty interesting take on some of those songs. So if you haven't heard it, throw it on. His cover of Sorrow, I don't know why, but that song just gets me. And I'm not a big sax fan, but yeah, you got to have a saxophone on that. Well, in the same vein, Mott the Hoople, Mott the Hoople, one of my favorite bands in the 70s. And I mean, all the way to Memphis leading off this album.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
One of my all-time favorite rock songs.
You should do that song in a band I was in too.
Oh, jeez. Why didn't you have me in that band? Okay.
I know.
Beck Bogart, A Piece. There's that self-titled album.
Yeah.
His cover of Stevie Wonder's Satisfaction? No, Superstition. Thank you, Guy. Yeah. See, that's what happens when you're old. Superstition. I've played that in a few bands. This version of it anyway, and it's a blast to play. But cool album. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. I would put ELP in there. I should put ELP in there. Yeah, Nurse Lake and Palmer. Here's my problem. This is why it didn't make my top 10, Al. And I'm just the biggest ELP fan. For some reason, they kind of lost the magic to me when they did studio, because it's like, well, yeah, I mean, you can do overdubs and all this other kind of stuff. When they did this stuff live, that's where the magic was. So the Welcome Back, My Friends, The Show That Never Ends, the album that came out after this, that live album, that to me is off the charts, amazing. I mean, that the 3 dudes, pre-MIDI, no tracks, nothing, wow. And they were able to play all this crap and make it sound awesome.
That's talent, man.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. Now I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of live albums. I love live music.
You don't see these kind of bands anymore, man. It's like, yes, there's bands out there that have great musicianship, but I don't know, man. Like these 3 guys, man. It's just like you don't see like anything like that anymore, man. It's just, I don't know, man. It's just that whole era is it's just gone, man. It's the music lives on, but there's nobody really pushing envelopes.
Yeah.
You know,
I think there's still some guys out there doing this, but not making it
yeah,
big on it.
it's
Um,
underground too. You really got to look for it. You know,
yeah,
Yeah.
so
go see Jared James Nichols, and
I am
you'll
gonna go see him.
yeah, that's the real deal. I mean, that's total musical badassery. I mean, three
Yeah,
dudes getting it done, and like they're playing from here,
yeah,
totally from here. I mean, it's like
yeah.
yeah, yeah. There's still a few people out there, but you're right, Al. It's more about the show, less about actually just getting out there and rocking your rocking your butt off, man.
The thing with ELP though, man, was like their musicianship was kind of like the show. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah,
Like it's
it
like
was. Yeah, there was nothing boring about it. Yeah, it was just intense. I mean, you watch them for 2 hours and you're still not getting tired. I was just like, holy,
yeah,
how are they doing this?
yeah,
Yeah. And the thing is that, yeah, there's still bands out there that play great music, but they're not in the forefront like these were.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah,
LP and Yes and
yeah,
all
they're
these
not
great
playing.
bands. I mean, they were at the top of the world, and everybody knew about them.
Yeah, they're not playing
Yeah.
arenas. No.
Yeah.
All right, so that's my five. Al?
What's your five?
I'm gonna go with the Amboy Dukes, Call of the Wild. Um, I was really this is really when Ted Nugent and Amboy Dukes was transitioning out of the Amboy Dukes into like Ted really was like the leader of this band by this point. He was the man, was kind of leading into his solo career, but this was still that middle transition period. But if you don't have this album freaking rocks, man. It's so good. His guitar tone is killer on this. I go back to this album a lot. I love this album. Rob Grange is already on bass on this one, so he's already getting his solo band kind of gelling there. He had a singer called Andy Jazowski, and I like his vocals on here. And Ted does some vocals as well. And yeah, he was transitioning from the Amboy Dukes into his. It was Ted Nugent and the Amboy Dukes by this point. So really, he was like the front guy, you know. My next one's gonna be Tres Hombres by ZZ. This was this almost made my top 10. I love the early ZZ. It's great. Beer Drinkers, one of my favorite songs. Waiting for the Bus. Jesus Just Love Chicago. I love that transition from one song into the other. It's one of those 1-2 punches you always have to hear both of them when you're listening to the radio. They go from one and always into the other. You know, um, yeah. I mean, La Grange. Obviously, that's the hit. You know, I'm gonna go with a band that I really got into because of Metallica, and it's Budgie. They have a
Oh yeah.
album called "Never Turn Your Back on a Friend." It starts off with "Bread Fan," which is the first song on here. They do a cover of "Baby Please Don't Go," and I think it's a great album, great underrated band. You want to talk about heavy trios? This trio was heavy. They were like kind of like almost compared to like if Sabbath met Rush or whatever, but even they predated Rush anyway. So
Yeah.
Rush wasn't even out yet when this band. But Bert Shelley, which is the bass player and the lead singer, he had that high pitched voice. So you got the Getty comparison going on there, you know. But I love this album, man. Great album. Um, Leonard Skinner, pronounced Leonard Skinner. Um, Tuesday's Gone, Simple Man, Give Me 3 Steps, the classic from top to bottom. I mean, and Freebird ends off with Freebird. Come on, you know. And then I'm gonna go with Aerosmith's debut. Although not my favorite Aerosmith album, um, it's got Dream On, which is their Stairway to Heaven, really, if you think about it, and a classic, which didn't become a hit until like later on after their third album,
Yeah.
after Toys in the Attic, they re-released Dream On as a single, and then it really took off, you know. But it's got Mama Kin on there, great song. Walking the Dog, One Way Street, it's a good debut. Again, you know, not my favorite Aerosmith album, but they started off cool, raw, dirty, just the way Aerosmith should be. So that's my five.
When I guess it was the soundboard that Aerosmith released
Yeah.
this
Oh
last,
yeah,
I
the
guess, 2 years.
predated the first album. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good because about half of it is that debut album is on
Yeah.
there. You know,
Yeah.
they sound really good. I'm
Yeah.
gonna start by with Iggy Power, the Stooges, Raw
Yeah.
Power. This was remastered by Bruce Dickinson. I didn't know that Bruce did so much remastering.
That's not Bruce, but it's not Bruce Dickinson, the singer of Iron Maiden, though.
Yeah, I
There's
know
another
that.
Bruce. Yeah. Okay. I didn't know if you knew that or not.
Well, I didn't. I thought it was Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden.
It's the Bruce Dickinson who's most famous for more cowbell.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Al. So who is this Bruce Dickinson?
He's just a different guy. He's just like kind of producer and like, yeah, it's not the singer of Iron Maiden. It's just a different guy, you know.
All right. Well,
If you notice
well,
if you notice a lot of reissues of albums, they have liner notes kind of written out by him as well, you
yeah,
know. So
yeah.
yeah,
I've noticed that too on different things.
it's
Well,
not the
well,
Bruce Dickinson Run to the Hills Bruce Dickinson.
oh, okay. Well, I want to apologize to my cousin that I argued with about it.
Yeah, look him up, man. You know, you'll see his credentials. You know,
Yeah. Uh,
I can't name a lot off the top of my head right now, but he's been around a long time, man.
well, every
He's
time
done
I
a
look
lot of
up, well,
he's
every
done a
time I
lot of
look up Bruce
reissues.
Dickinson, I get the Iron Maiden figure.
Yeah,
Um, Also, we've talked about this fucking awesome album cover, Brain Salad Surgery. Just, just wicked, man. It's a great
that's
album.
a Geiger. That's a Geiger
Yeah,
cover, man.
It is
I would
Alien.
read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You
Yeah,
open it.
he did some wicked artwork.
Yeah,
Yeah,
where they would. And speaking of artwork, yes,
there you
for
go.
the topographic, test for the topographic
Oceans.
oceans.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. And I was
Paul
reading about
Paul
this.
Dean, right? Well, I
Huh?
mean, who's the Roger Dean? Roger Dean is
Yeah,
the
yeah. Roger
artist
D
for
does
that.
all these, but
Yeah.
it tells you here in the liner notes. Great stuff, liner notes. It tells you why there's only one song per side. There were two in Japan, and he was reading a book about each one is about faith, religion, and the earth, and it's something else very important in life. I forgot what it was, but that's what each side is about. So that's why each side is dedicated to just one track. And also, Al touched on it, Leonard Skinner, pronounced Leonard Skinner. Um, Good one that just didn't quite make the top 10. And the one I was looking for, I don't know where it is, but I've been getting into them, and they're an English band with a dual guitar that started in '69, and excuse me, and I'm talking about Wishbone Ash
Oh, Ash, yeah.
Oh
with
yeah,
Wishbone Ash
yeah.
4. I had that album because I was playing it a lot this weekend because I was, should I put it here? Should I put it there? Should it just be a? But it's some really good stuff on there, and their last album called Coat of Arms, it was also very good. It was released probably about two years ago. I mean, it's not Wishbone Ash in the '70s, but it's a pretty good album. But it's their album number 39, if you can believe it. It's
Wow.
their 39th release of new
Wow.
material. So that's our
They were
picks
like
for 1973. What's up?
yeah, they were one of the forerunners of like the dual guitar kind of thing going on. You know, like
Yeah,
kind of before, kind of predating Thin Lizzy there, and
Red
Judas
Priest.
Judas Priest kind of like took a page from their book. You know, but yeah, Wishbone Ash, they're not known over here at all in America, really, man.
No,
You know,
No.
I bought an album of theirs, and um, out of a whim, and I think I'm up to four different albums by them,
cool.
and I
Yeah,
enjoy them. The thing with them is that when they were coming out, a lot of the English blues was coming out, blues guitar, but they didn't fit in there either, and they fit in like in a proggy hard rock kind of the sound that was different from anybody else at that time. So Wishbone Ash 4. So that concludes 1973. I wanted to say we missed you out there, Jerry Soupy. Please get better real soon.
Get
I
well,
also
Jerry.
want to make a big thank you to Will. Thank you for all your comments and for your picks of your albums. And I hope to have you back on the show again very soon. We still have to do Neil Young parts 2 through 5. And also a Rush we didn't finish. So I got a lot to do with Mr. Toth there. And also to Jan here, thank you so much for joining us, Jan. We really did appreciate your input here. And next week, here on Black Spinner Circle, we are going to be having a vinyl battle. Now, this vinyl battle was requested by everyone else who didn't like the choices I made for the last time. So this time, we're going to do the Black Album by Metallica versus Megadeth's Rust in Peace. Because the last time it was Megadeth's Peace Sells Who's Mine against Master of Puppets, and it was a clean sweep. It wasn't even close. So this time, we're going to give Megadeth a fighting chance. So join us here for that next Wednesday, where we'll have another Megadeth versus Metallica show coming up. And also, the new Metallica album should be coming out sometime next month, sometime in April. So keep an eye out on that. Anything else y'all want to add? Oh, yeah, and also, I almost forgot. Also, another podcast that we do here, me and Brad do Pop the Bat and Pop the Bat,
Crack the bat and pop the mint.
Thank you.
You need to pop some pseudoephedrine.
Oh, man. Hey, I made it, right? I made it.
Yeah, you're the hero, man. Well done.
But yeah, Pop the Man and Crack the Bat, which is our MLB podcast. We're gonna have a new co-host with us on that, his name is Zach Morris, and he will be with us on that date. Is your son going to be able to join us?
Yeah, Nathan should be here. We'll see.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. That will be fun. So that will be on Tuesday, Wednesday, Megadeth against Metallica. And then what else y'all have going on, gentlemen?
Not really, man. Go ahead, Brad.
I'm thinking about eating dinner.
Oh man, I had my dinner already. As far as I'm going, hey, as far as what I got going, and speaking of Beck Booger and the Peace, I'm going to meet Carmine and Peace on Sunday.
Cool.
Like kind of a meet greet thing he's doing here. He's doing that at a record store, which is cool. He's going to do like a 2-hour kind of a Q&A, and he's going to perform a little bit. So it's going to be really cool, man. I've never. He's a legend, man. I never met him before. He's getting up there in age, so I figured, you know what, man, I might as well do it now before, he's gone. God forbid, not yet, but our heroes are leaving us. So, so he's cool, man. I'm gonna bring my Blue Murder album. I want him to sign that.
Nice. Yeah, he'll love that.
I love that album, man. So, but he's been, dude. I was looking up his discography, and it's insane the amount of stuff he's been on. So many different.
Oh yeah.
The first time I saw him live, he was playing with Edgar Winter.
Oh, okay.
In Whitefish, Montana, of all places.
Wow.
That was another one of those where we were on a road trip and we just picked up a local paper. Said Edgar Winter at this playing at this Mexican restaurant, and it was Carmine and Peace playing drums, and it was unbelievable. It was a great show.
Yeah.
You know what? Yeah. Carmine and Peace has been on so much stuff. We could probably do a show of top 10 albums.
There you go.
Carmine and Peace we're on.
You got Rod Stewart.
I'd be in on that.
He was on a Ted Nugent album.
Do that. And in fact, that's in for sometime in April. Carmine and Peace top 10 albums.
Oh, there you go. Man.
Hey,
so that's what we do Sunday, and then that's really it, man. I want to get another show going with you, Andy, soon. I'll talk to you about it. Get something else going, and that's really it.
All right.
So, thank you for having me on, man.
Yeah, well, whatever you want to throw at me, I will be game. Always am. All right, guys.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for watching out there. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Will. Y'all were great out there. I really did. We all appreciate your comments. It's always so much fun when there's other comments being thrown in at us. So thank y'all so much for everything.
Get better,
We'll be
Andy.
here next Wednesday.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, thank you. I'll be fine sometime about Friday. The good thing is that I'm already off tomorrow, so that'll be a little bit more rest, and I'll be all right. But
Rest
thank you
up.
so much. Huh?
Yeah. Rest up,
Yeah.
man. You know.
Yeah, rest, fluids, and rock and roll.
Yeah, well, I'll just drink some beers before I go to bed. I'll be all right.
Yeah.
All right, bye guys.
Good
Bye.
night.
Puppy.
Bye, Maggie.
All right.
Have a
Good night,
great night.
everybody.
Yeah, thanks,
Bye
guys.
bye. Take
Thanks,
care.
Will.